Well, good afternoon and a very warm welcome from BBRC, Britain and English. Thank you very much for joining me here today. Well, today, as you may well tell, I've got a Union Jack here, our national flag, encompassing England, Wales and Scotland. Some do have the Welsh dragon on them through the middle, but the blue is Scotland and the red and white is England. They're a very important flag and should be a symbol of national pride. But why do we not show it very much? Are we embarrassed as a country? Maybe British people do have their reservations about showing their national flag. You sometimes see other flags up, even on council buildings, public buildings. We've seen a lot from certainly other causes. We've seen Ukraine flags, we've seen Palestine and Israel flags, even pride flags. Is it right? Should we have the Union Jack first above all flags? Possibly, for our own unity and national pride, and perhaps integration as well, as some may say. Well, that's a subject I will look at a little bit more into detail today. Well, we're well into the summer here, so anybody who comes to England from abroad, any of you visitors from abroad may well enjoy partaking in local events such as summer fetes, summer shows, village charity fundraisers, barbecues. As I say, charity being the operative word there. A lot of sort of charity, local causes, and certainly you might enjoy yourself. But we did have a very good spring this year, so we're not really expecting a very nice summer. In fact, it's been quite cloudy lately and cooler, but actually it's quite warm today, which is why I'm wearing a t-shirt, not a tie today. But I'm sure you don't mind that, and that's another subject I could talk about, in that uniform policies for certain organisations have actually laxed over the last, 6-7 years, certainly since COVID, but I know John Lewis and other department stores have relaxed their uniform code, and now you're more likely to see girls wearing jeans and trainers, rightly or wrongly. And I'm sure people of my grandparents' generation would hate that, because they like to see proper uniforms and smart dress, and men with suits, ladies with dresses, and possibly black shoes. Far more professional, but of course times are changing. Well, as I say, I started off by introducing a bit about the Union Jack, sometimes known as the Union flag. You now know what it means. Any of you who doesn't will know more now, but I'm sure you know a lot more about it than perhaps it's taught in schools these days, especially in this country. We don't seem to talk about our country nationally very much at all. We more talk about other countries, and perhaps where we need to change to identify with other cultures, which is probably a little bit more contentious, because a lot of people complain about doing all that with Europe, and they value their country, certainly France, Spain, China and America. Certainly the flag is very important and fundamental to their way of life and their national culture and identity. Well, I'm sure you from abroad are very respectful of the flag, and those who come here probably want to take some mementos home, and certainly people who've moved from other countries have realised that it's a national identity, and they come here and then realise it's a privilege, not a right, to live here. As I say, you sometimes see other flags, and people are very open to those sort of things. They don't mind other flags. Of course, if you've got French people, Greek people, if there's any national football on, sometimes those people will put flags in the windows. But the England flag is obviously for the England game, because we've got England football, Scottish football, there's Welsh teams, so that's slightly different. But sometimes people are more concerned about putting the national flag out for whatever reason. Even VE Day, that's a very important event marking the end of World War II. We didn't see many Union Jacks about. There was more in London with the commemorations down there, and of course street parties as well, but not anything like as much as you may see, for example, when people talk about the Pride Month, or even one lady said it goes on for 3 months, which you may well do if you go over the actual full time it goes on over the months in different places. LGBT, in other words. Well, as I say, France, Spain and America, very nationalistic, will buy their own goods, whether it be cars, wine, whatever they produce they will buy, and certainly it doesn't matter on the quality in a lot of places. Certainly the French have always bought French cars, and they haven't always been the best of cars. And some other countries like Italy have, I think they put import restrictions on Japanese cars, because traditionally the Italian cars weren't that good, so of course they bought something more reliable, and of course the Japanese were the cars to buy in probably the early 80s. But things like that. So, and I'm sure you like British goods, whatever's left here, but a lot of our companies, talking about national companies and things like that, a lot of our companies have been sold abroad, but they've still got operations here. In case you're wondering, I can do a session about that in future, because it is another subject of contention, unfortunately, why everything seems to be sold off and in foreign hands. I will give you the link. There is a Chinese girl called Lisa who's married to an Englishman, and she's quite concerned about all this to do with our national pride, and perhaps worrying about other cultures and being brainwashed by certain figures in this country about how we should live, and to the detriment of ordinary folk in the street here, worrying about other cultures and what we should do, and almost being embarrassed about our own country, which would never happen in China, where the flag is revered. And she's mentioned a lot about that in a video she's produced on YouTube, which I will endeavour to put a link up. And she's called Lisa, as I say, married. She's got a Chinese, I think, British passport now, married to an Englishman as well. Moving on from all that, I'd now like to talk about a little bit about mobile communications. Now, over the last few months, there's been a lot of parents, certainly, a lot of schools and others concerned about the amount of young people have got mobile phones. Now, I think the amount of young, certainly children with smartphones has surged in the last few years. I think it used to be about 11 years old was the average before a child got a smartphone. But now it's more likely to be 7 or 8, which is horrendously young to be online with constant communication all the time. Now, about 24 years ago, I had a phone which was very similar to this, but this is a Nokia 100. But this is actually from 2011. But it would have been just about the same size as the first phone I had about 24 years ago, around about 2001, 2002. No camera, no internet, obviously, just talk and text. Now, I think, personally, that that's the sort of phone, if a child needs a phone, under 16, perhaps this is what they need. They don't need all these other distractions of internet, social media, or whatever else. That's only a matter of opinion, but I think many parents agree with it. If the parents say, oh, well, we need to know where Johnny is or Susan is, well, you can lend them your phone, or one of those is absolutely fine to use, pay as you go, and does everything you need. Doesn't need all these extra bits and pieces and apps, certainly not at a young age. And that's the consensus of opinion with many people at the moment here, because of the surge in mobile phone use and perhaps online abuse and the likes, affecting children's health. And I should say, another point about mobile phones, and this is probably how some of you international visitors, certainly in the cities in this country, most places are very, very safe. But I was in London about, 6 weeks ago, and we were out in the evening to an evening concert. We were around Victoria, and the bus terminated. We had to wait for another one, but as we got off the bus, my friend suddenly saw that there was two bikes had gone past. Now, I'm sure they're probably gangsters, which they look like, hoodies and all the likes, and they were certainly looked like they were shady characters, as you might say. I went past a girl, I think she looked a bit Chinese, and they took her phone. Well, my advice would be, if you do have a smartphone, the best way of keeping it safe would be, don't go through the city with it held up in the air in front of you, because that could be seen as asking for trouble. You don't need it out all the time. If you're trying to use anything like Google Maps, try to keep the phone near to you, and perhaps stand and keep an eye on what's happening. Because I wanted to go after and help this girl, but we were waiting for the bus, and she was chasing after these bikes by that time. My friend said about, oh look, they've stolen her phone. And she was chasing after them up the road. I wanted to go and help her, perhaps to phone the police or whatever, but of course I think if you're trying to get after them to get this phone, running quite fast to get up to where they were going. But of course on bikes they're more likely to get away quite fast. As I say, I'm not trying to shock anybody, but this can happen. Just be on your guard. It can happen in any city in the world, I'm sure. And as you know, London is very multicultural, very international, but 80% of people there are from different countries, going by the census figures. So do be on your guard. But because I don't think the police, they do treat mobile phones a bit like bikes. And that they're not really easy to track or trace because they're so mobile. Pardon the pun with the mobile phones, but certainly smartphones. I think these thieves are actually after iPhones. Now, I don't have an iPhone, so maybe I haven't got that problem. But bearing in mind, probably better to have a cheap phone. Certainly not the top iPhones costing over £1,000, or some of those Samsungs are the same sort of price. But people do say that it's a lot safer here than many other countries, and you'll often see people out late at night. But just be on your guard is the best advice I can give. Well, just as a footnote, if you are in Britain in the summer and you do want to go to some places, do realise that there are opening times, certainly different times at weekends. Check the weekend trains and buses, because they will run at slightly less frequent in the evenings, weekends and Sundays, but of course there are trains and coaches going from different cities, very regular, certainly, for example, between Birmingham and London, or Birmingham and Manchester, and those sort of places, the principal cities. So do enjoy yourself if you come here, and like I say, the various, could be some carnival, street events. There's lots going on in the big cities, especially in London, as you well know. I do hope you have a great time, and if you're coming here, and if you want to know any further information, those of you who are British, well, you probably know all this already. I'm sure you're quite interested to know perhaps a bit more about what I'm doing, and in some ways anything going on around here. Well, that's it for today. I'll try and give you some more details in the next few months, and more interesting words. I was going to say, actually as well, is about a homonym. Now, it's a word that has different meanings. Now, a good example for this is the word plug. Now, you'll say, a plug, what's a plug? Oh, it's a plug you put in the electric socket. Absolutely right. But there's also another meaning. Plug you put in the sink. But there's also another one. That's 2, 3. Wall plug. Small little plastic thing. If you're going to drill a hole in the wall, you put a plug in before you screw it in. So that's 3 forms of plug. So there's another bit of quirky language in English. Well, there'll be more of that, where that came from in future. And I hope you've all enjoyed yourselves. Anybody wants any more information, certainly do post in the comments, and I hope you have a great summer, and I do hope to post a few more interesting productions in the next few months. Speak soon. God bless you. This has been BBRC, Britain and English. Bye bye now, and don't forget to wave your flag with pride.